What's going on, guys? This Yuli Trades here with the Money Team, and just a quick recap on what I had promised you guys on where we had gone short, right, on SPY, ES, right, on Thursday, kind of got chopped up. So I wanted to bring into perspective, right, um, like what I had put out, right, that day. So I was like, hey, on 4/8, Wednesday night, I was like, if we break a hold above, previous year high, of course we're gonna go target, all those all-time highs. If not, we're gonna come down and sweep off these lows. What I had seen is that, I had marked my breakers here that we had kind of gotten to, right? So we swept quarterly liquidity, right? Put in an imbalance on the 24, came down, swept that newly placed in balance. So this is your bullish order flow, right? Um, and we came and we kind of like swept through this weekly imbalance and created a new imbalance over it. So this volume gap was kind of what I was targeting to come back into. And, you know, two mistakes that I made here, I guess, is one, I was not patient enough to wait for the actual sweep of the previous day's high. And we're going to kind of just replay here. I'm going to try and make this recap as quick as possible so you guys can just watch it. But yeah, so we had, notice how I still had, my targets, once we break above these blue lines, 65.82, 68.52 was a very important level. So once we're in with like a breaker range, I always watch price kind of bouncing in between the lower and upper of that range, especially when it's stacked with confluence. And we'll go now to the chart to kind of like see where I had messed up, right? So here, right, on Wednesday, right, this is what I saw, right? So what happened, right? We had that pop. We came up. We put in a small imbalance here on the hourly, but we have three candles in the same direction. This is a good place to kind of take a short. What's your stop loss? It would have to be the top of this candle right here. But notice even, on the hourly, we never swept that buy side liquidity, this white candle here. So it's, I kind of forced this move, I could say. So we're gonna go through here, right? And I'm just gonna kind of like pause and let it run. So I'm on the hourly time frame. So on here, where are we here? Okay, so we're already going into Thursday. And what do we see? All right, so we're holding this, 9 a.m. range here for ES, right? And Thursday morning, just gonna kind of like let it play out. I see, right, that we break right under the range early in the morning, right? And this is actually our first imbalance created. So I'll draw it out here in a bit. So, okay. So we have, our first imbalance created to the downside um, under a 9 a.m. range. So technically speaking, right, I want to take my short in here and I want to have my stop loss be, just right there. So over that red bar, I should cut because, you know, it's going to want to sweep the top of this liquidity because it's just price magnets gap, like kind of like gamma levels. But what was I looking for here at least? I was for at least looking a sweep of this level, right? This newly low created. I was looking to get back into at least the imbalance created here, probably the equilibrium, which is going to be somewhere around there, somewhere around here, right? 6, 7, 22. So we go in, right? And I let it play out. So we could have taken some initial profits as soon as we, took that imbalance and it's like right there, but it's, not a high probable move. So what happens here is as soon as we notice, right, as soon as we broke above that stop, that level there, that was basically considered, another breaker, right? As soon as we kind of started closing above that level, and then one thing else to notice is that even though small, but I just want you guys to notice, just bullish order flow. Even on the hourly, we're putting in small imbalances, right, towards the upside. Now, I mean, just things to notice, especially once you start putting in balances over what created bearish order flow. Once you start having an order block that formed, like this is an order block that formed here, overtaking this. We swept, from CRTs. We swept the bottom of this candle here, never closed below it, right? So it's like, yes, we lost this hourly, and I should have, we should have probably just taken full profit here, whatever this, this move was from from here down, from basically from here down there. So this was what, like not a big move at all. It's just a couple points. It sucked. But once we break above that, it's like I should have just not held. And then another clear signifier was this breaker right here, 68.52. So as we see price, right, it kind of just jumps right above the breaker, right? We put in new bullish order flow, right there. And we see how it reacts. So it's like, okay, what are we in? We're still in this, high time frame imbalance right here, which is a monthly and a weekly. But we have untouched weekly imbalance. We have previous month's high up here, right? So we still have these draws on liquidity. And as soon as we kind of started stepping over, the previous day's high here on Wednesday and holding above that level, that was another clear signifier for me to get out. Any imbalance to the upside, I should have gotten out. I shouldn't have stayed in puts here once I saw an imbalance form against me. It's kind of like also taking profit if I'm writing calls and I see an imbalance form against me in the opposite direction. Depending on the time that I have on the contracts, I got to consider taking profit or heading in the other direction, whatever it is. But I gotta be ready to act. So we see this play out, right? You're holding this breaker level, right, created, and look where I'm grabbing my breaker level from. This previous rejected zone over here. So once you're holding that, look, right, you just keep on sweeping liquidity because we never really, we never sweep liquidity to go to the downside. So we're holding that on Friday, right? And here's our move, right? It collected enough of that liquidity sweep, right? Only to come down, right, into, I think, our breaker here to only bounce back up, right? So here you are. Let me just pause it here. Here we're at Friday, right? And I think we added on here when I signaled puts, and we took I think a 40% move or so on this move down, right? If you see, right, we're sweeping again liquidity. We sweeped all these previous day's highs for Thursday right here. The soup of sell side, we souped the 9 a.m. candle, 1 2 3 here, and now we're coming down. Right now, notice there's no clear imbalance to the downside, so it's still an iffy move, but we took it, and I think we profited off of that. So now you see what are, you got to notice what are we holding again, right? So it's like we're holding this same breaker, right? We're playing in the same breaker level, 68.52, 60, and 67.62 is the breaker, right? So above it, where's our next draw on liquidity? Kind of this weekly imbalance here where there's sell side. All right, so we come into Monday. What do? We just come down, right? We sweep the low that I was looking to sweep um, from the very beginning, right? Um, we come down into the bottom of the breaker. We come and sweep, this huge order block over here where there's, bullish order flow. So this is what I mean by bullish order flow. And, right, what do we start putting in? I'll just let that outwardly form. Once you get, bullish order flow out of a high time frame imbalance with a breaker, discount of the range, you can take that, and it's like kind of like the same story, right? Look at these liquidity sweeps up here. Look at these liquidity sweeps down here. And you put in this bullish imbalance. So okay, so from here you can just take any position here. You can take any position here, and calls what just to target again liquidity. Once again, right? You target this topside liquidity, and this is just for kind of like day trading type strategies, but. So we'll let it play out. It comes down, right? As soon as you tap into that level, you can take in. You're going to be a little bit early, but you could take it, and your stop loss, you just got to know your risk. Your stop loss is going to be down there, and now you're holding for the move, right? So at no point are you putting in a bearish imbalance to the downside, right? So you're holding for the move, and this is the trickier part sometimes with liquidity logic, right, is as long as there's no imbalance against you, you hold for that move, and you hold for that sweep of liquidity. Now, if you entered here, can you take profits into here? Yeah, absolutely. Can you take profits into here? Absolutely. You don't have to wait to the top, but once you start buying, getting really comfortable with your decision making and the amount of contracts that you can buy, you can get some risk-free runners and then just let those roll, to the draw on liquidity. And the most important thing, I guess, is just buying time, right? Um, and and actually, I'll take that back. The most important thing is waiting for the sweep of liquidity to buy time, at least, to buy it in size, because then you can get chopped up, like this is a big chop up right here that I got in, on shorter dated contracts, but we kind of still got the move, but if I would have just patiently waited until we just swept that liquidity, which was on Friday, and just entered on Friday, which I did. We got like 100% on these, on this move. We had from 68.80 to 40-point move or so, and on SPY, I think that was like $2-3 move. So we got 100% on our calls there, on our puts. Sorry. So same story with this, and why did I say this morning, hey, I'm cutting puts at open for the same reason. I saw this sweep on liquidity. I saw we're back at this breaker. I'm seeing that we're sweeping bullish order flow. I'm like, this is gonna want to go, check back in, at least into the bearish breaker, and if not, if it passes that and then goes beyond the target, then it's gonna target this other, liquidity zone. So we'll see it play out, right, and how it went. So it, exactly what it does, right? Gets to target. What are we doing? We're sweeping previous week's highs. Um, and what are we at right now? You know, we're here at the almost at the weekly imbalance. So if I look at this, and okay, well let me see YM, right? Let me see ES and let me see NQ. And also let's compare the divergences, right? That where we're at, and how the market kind of flows. So I'm getting way deep, and this is all that what I'm going to be explaining in liquidity logic, but I had drawn this on NQ from here. It decided to sweep up first, but it always wanted to come down into here and then bounce up, which I gave myself a little bit more time than I needed. But here's your draw on liquidity. These are good targets. So what are we doing now? We're sweeping this monthly liquidity, right? Weekly liquidity on YM. We're sweeping it on NQ. And ES is almost there, right? It's almost, starting to sweep. So it looks like, does it have to catch up? No. But what are we waiting for? We're waiting for bearish order flow. What's bearish order flow? Any imbalance to the downside, and that's going to dictate, hey, we're going to come down and recheck. And I expect at least for us to come down and recheck here into these levels, 25,392 or so for ES here, 68.88, the same target that we kind of came off. Maybe we just come and bounce off of a previous is this previous week's high or previous month's high that I had drawn out? I'm not sure. Let me see this. What is this? Previous month's high? Sorry guys, I'm fucking blind. That is previous month's high, sorry. Yeah. Let me make sure I have that level drawn out correctly. Yep. So we just swept previous month's high. Is it gonna go for the top of February? Possibly, but we still have this roadblock here. So I always caution, and I always am aware of where we are on the chart. Can you start looking at lower time frames to make a decision and see if you want to go short? Absolutely. But do you want a good indicator of bearish order flow? Here's 15-minute bearish order flow. Look, you can take your position here. You can put your stop loss here. So you're risking, okay, you're entering here, right, into the check-in in here. So 926, you're risking $4 for, what is that, the $15 move? And you're probably going to get here, previous month's high right now, on this rejection. And let's see here how it is on the NASDAQ. Okay, you got your same order flow here on NQ. Let's see on YM. Same dealio. But look at this. We're gonna see it live play out. But this is just some of the stuff that I'm gonna be teaching in there. I don't know. I'll see if I make this video public or YouTube video later. But what kind of creates your bearish breaker here is kind of gonna be this candle here. So you want to kind of cross under 69.20, hold that level for further downside, at least previous month's high, check in, at bare minimum. But does ES still come up and sweep some of that untouched liquidity? It's possible, but you already touched it on YM, and you already sweeped it on NQ. So it doesn't necessarily have to happen, but you want to keep an eye out on it, right? So you entered here, right? Let's say you just entered as soon as it checked in, 25.91, or right, or even here, right? You're 25.96. So look, $4 risk, guys. $4. You're risking $4 to make a $12 move. So 1 to 3 trade, not bad. But that's it. I'm gonna close this video out, guys. I didn't want to make it too long, but there's the explanation of kind of like where I went wrong, right? Holding over these levels, I was focused more on a higher time frame basis, right? And it being here Thursday, right? On a high time frame, I didn't have any real imbalances down here. So I was waiting for this move down, but this move down didn't happen until Sunday, where it took us down all the way to the targets that I wanted. And that's how it is, you know. Sometimes, you know, especially with options, you're gonna get the move overnight, and you're not gonna be able to collect. Um, and that's just, you know, it's the name of the game, and it's one of the risks that you have to be aware. That's why, you know, position sizing and all that stuff is really, really important. So, all right, hope you guys have a great start of the week. Liquidity Logic class tomorrow, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yuli out.